All right, welcome to PhD Stories today. I have a special guest. We call him Bishop Kimiywe, but he's Dr. Kimiywe, maybe the other side of him that we do not know. But today we're going to get to hear more about his PhD journey. And I just want to welcome Bishop or Dr. Kimiywe to introduce himself. Maybe just tell us more about him for those who do not know, and then we can continue. Welcome.
Thank you, my brother Kimiywe. I am Kenyan, of course, born and raised up in Kenya. But recently I now relocated and taken up permanent residence in the United States. I have a wife and now married for 31 years with two grown-up children.
Mm-hmm.
I've served and I've been ministering with Christ is the Answer Ministries for close to about 30 years. When I graduated from Bible College, that was way back, I was taken in as a CITAM pastor. That time it used to be called Nairobi Pentecostal Church, which later on became Christ is the Answer Ministries. So I came in as an intern. I served also as a pastor. I've also served as a senior pastor for most of the time, and also at some point I also served as the deputy bishop of the ministry. Yes. So that is basically my background in terms of what I've been doing in my area of calling and ministry as a pastor. But before that, I also trained. I used to teach as a technical teacher before I got the call of God to come into ministry. I was trained as a technical teacher, and I was a teacher in one of the technical institutions. I served for about 8 years. During that period is when I got the call of God, and I resigned from the Teacher Service Commission and went straight into Bible College. From there, then I was inducted as a pastor in CITAM.
Wow. Glad to know that you trained as a teacher, because I also trained as a teacher, so it resonates well with me. Thank you. And now that you're talking about academia and PhD, maybe just to begin, where do we balance between, because I know that there's a church on one hand and there's academics on
right.
Where do they meet?
I believe the two are complementary in the sense that as one is involved in ministry. Ministry is very delicate and intricate in the sense that it is wide and far. As you do ministry, you engage with people and you find yourself delving into very challenging situations that people are going through. As you counsel with the people, you find that they are also dealing with matters across the board. In fact, it would look like the pastor is a jack of all trades, because you are everything to everybody. And so I think with that kind of responsibility on the shoulders of a pastor, there is definitely the need also to grow yourself, develop your skills and your knowledge, so that your ability to engage at different levels is enhanced.
Interesting. Because I asked that because I know there's some people who are on either extremes. Some believe the church should be there, academia should be on this other hand. We shouldn't try to mix, but I know we need to work. The two of them actually go together.
There should be a balance. There should be,
Thank you, Bishop. So maybe just tell us briefly about your PhD journey. It's not that I just learned that you actually have two of them.
Well, what happened is
areas of specialization.
Yeah, apparently, much of my studies, whether it was at undergrad or graduate level, have been driven, like you were indicating earlier, by my desire to equip myself so that I can be more productive and effective as a minister.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
so, like when I was doing my master's, that is at AIU, African International University,
Yeah.
I decided to do an MA in pastoral studies.
Okay.
And so my studies have been more of ministry oriented. So even when I was choosing and looking at what I can do at the doctoral level,
Yeah.
I found myself going for the Doctor of Ministry,
Mm-hmm.
rather than the PhD, which is on a different scale. But basically, in terms of preparation and engagement,
Mm-hmm.
they are more or less the same. It's just that
True,
one
true.
is ministry oriented, while
Mm-hmm.
the other one is more academic.
Academic, yeah, true, true.
Yeah. Mm.
Okay, so it was a doctorate in ministry.
Right.
Okay, and how was the experience? And again, I'm imagining, of course, you you are fully into studying. How are you studying? By the way, was it online? Was it physically?
That's a good question now. Again, the very interesting thing, my brother, is that Harry, I have studied much of my time as an off campus student, as
Mm-hmm.
what you would call a part-time student. When I
Mm-hmm.
was doing my master's at African International University,
Yeah.
I was actually involved in a special program that had been designed by AIU for
Mm-hmm.
pastors like me who are busy in the
Yes.
ministry. And
Yes.
so what they did is they tailored it in a way that they would, find a way on how we could engage. And so we were to come and do our coursework
Yeah.
only on Mondays, because
Mm-hmm.
Monday is when the pastors take
They'll
their
be
days
free.
off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So during that period, about 3 or so years,
Mm-hmm.
I sacrificed my Mondays so that I could be able to go and study and
Yeah.
grow myself. So
Yeah.
that meant then I was busy
Mm-hmm.
in ministry and continued with my work as a pastor, but
Yeah.
at the same time coupling it with my studies.
Yeah.
And then also during the holidays, when the schools they would be closed, what would
Yeah.
happen is that AIU would do a crash program for us for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I would go and do the what we would call the interterm
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
courses
Mm-hmm.
that allowed me now to finish my master's program. Now, when I think that prepared me for the PhD program, because what
Mm-hmm.
happened
Mm-hmm.
then is that when I was doing my doctorate, I was a pastor. I
And a
was
full-time
also
one.
studying.
A full-time
Oh
pastor.
yeah, in fact, that is the time when I was the deputy bishop of
Mm-hmm.
Sitam, and at the same
Yeah.
time I was the senior pastor at
Imagine.
Sitam Buruburu. So
Yeah.
I doubled up all that,
Yeah.
and I was able to do my studies at Asbury
Mm-hmm.
Theological Seminary, which is in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Apparently, again, they had a very special program that was designed for people like us who are busy in ministry, but
Mm-hmm.
would want to develop themselves and grow themselves in terms of their their knowledge and
Mm-hmm.
their theological understanding and growth. So
Yeah.
what they would do is we would have what we would call sessions that were made specifically, or what you would call residencies. All
Yeah.
right, so
Mm-hmm.
that during the year you would sacrifice 1 month.
Mm-hmm.
During
Mm-hmm.
summer, we would come over and
Mm-hmm.
do class work. We would sit in the class and do the coursework.
Yeah.
So for the 4 or so years, that's what I did. I would sacrifice 1 month in the year when I would come to the United States to do my classwork and then go back to Kenya and continue with my classwork online. And this I did up to the point where I finished my studies at the Asbury Theological Seminary.
Okay. And how was the experience? How was the experience for all that period of time and juggling all these things and families there also, which you we've not included?
I think
I know.
Oh yes, you can say it. Family plus everything else.
Yes.
I think it takes, Harry, it takes a lot of commitment and a lot of devotion. I think you must be very focused. You must be very good in terms of your time management. So that you know when you need to do what. But I believe when you are committed and when you are determined to do something, you can be able to pull it through. You can be able to pull it through. It's just that sometimes we like to postpone and procrastinate and move things away. But if you purpose and you reorganize yourself and prioritize certain things, it is very possible to do ministry at the same time also do your studies.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, were there particular challenges for you now as an individual also pursuing this course and all the way back, actually, even from, we talked about the master's program, were there particular challenges even as you're pursuing in the midst of all these other obligations?
Definitely there is the challenge of finances because education is expensive. It is not a walkover. You need to find ways of paying up your tuition.
It wasn't a scholarship.
But again, I want to thank God because when I was doing my undergraduate studies, I only paid for my first year, and then the other years, the second and the third and the fourth year, I got a scholarship from CITAM. And then when I was doing my master's, also the same thing applied. I was able to study using my scholarship from CITAM. But when I was doing my doctorate at Asbury, I apparently, by the grace of God and God's divine intervention, I got a full scholarship that is normally offered by Asbury. Again, very choice. The very few people find themselves in that category. So I was able to be given a full scholarship that took care of my airfare, my accommodation, everything that I needed to do at Asbury was covered. And again, I want to just thank God for that contribution into my life because I would never have managed to pay the fees that was required. So one of the challenges definitely is the financial involvement and investment in the studies. It is a very key thing. I know many ministers and others who have gone into this kind of training and theological training, but they have dropped off simply because of finances. And then secondly, the other challenges, of course, are how to balance everything else around your life. Because if you are not very careful, again, you can put too much effort in your studies at the expense of the ministry and, of course, even the family. So again, it requires a lot of deliberate balance on your side in terms of making sure all the priority areas in your life are taken care of, and none of them suffers because of the other. And then thirdly, I think the other thing is a lot of sacrifice on one's side, because you deny yourself many things because you have to look for money. You deny yourself opportunity to go around, do many other things like everybody else so that you can concentrate on your studies. So there is a lot of discipline and determination that is required of anybody who is embarking on such a program.
Wow, wow. Yeah, that's very interesting and very helpful. I mean, even to a current or even a prospective PhD student, or even a master student for that case. I mean, the aspect of
Oh, yes.
sacrifice, finances, and all that. How was it different for you studying? I mean, you Kenya, and then also in the US. What are the differences? How was it like? Teaching approach and things like that.
Studies are studies. Basically, again, I want to thank God. Places like AIU have international spice. That's
Faculty.
why we call it
Mm-hmm.
African International University. So we
Okay.
had the lecturers. Some of them actually were lecturers from Asbury who used to
Oh,
come and do
awesome.
their, who used to come and do some exchange programs.
Mm-hmm.
So I got exposed to that international spice. I remember
Mm-hmm.
also, even from the undergrad, we used to
Yeah.
have exchange students coming in
Mm-hmm.
from Canada under
Mm-hmm.
the Pentecostal Assemblies of Canada. So we would rub shoulders with these exchange students. And
Mm-hmm.
that in itself allowed me opportunity to interact and
Yeah.
engage not just from the local scenario, but have an international outlook.
Yeah.
If I would again also remember, most of the classes that I've been to, whether it was during my undergrad or graduate studies,
Yeah.
there was always an international spice. So
Okay.
you would find there are people from across Africa, sometimes, like as I said, exchange students from abroad.
Mm-hmm.
So when I landed in Asbury, I must say there was not much cultural shock other than
Yeah.
just that now you are one amongst many who
Mm-hmm.
are maybe white. So you have to also just adjust to that kind of an environment. But in terms of engagement of the level of studies,
Yeah.
uh, I must say the kind of preparation that I got from AIU
Yeah.
was well able to help me
Mm-hmm.
engage with the studies at Asbury Theological Seminary.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. At least so there wasn't much of a difference, because I know sometimes people also experience culture shock and things like that, because they're used to this kind of teaching and this approach, and then suddenly things change completely. So for you, at least it
Mm,
wasn't much of a difference. I
yes.
don't know what kind of advice you'd give to some advice you'd give to people in ministry who are considering pursuing further studies, maybe their masters or PhD, and even
Mhm.
using the mode that you have, you took yourself, that particular approach. I don't know what kind of advice you'd give them.
I would say, like, the Bible has admonished us, when you have a sharpened weapon, you are able to work or serve in a smart way, other than when you have a blunt and an unsharpened weapon.
Mm-hmm.
You tend to use more energy. And I think that's what I would say that motivated me towards going into building and growing my academic and knowledge. So I would suggest that anyone who is in ministry, there is need to grow yourself, to expand your knowledge, to update yourself so that you can remain relevant, because the world is changing. And even
Mm-hmm.
at the ministry front, we find ourselves engaging on a different level than what it was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I think it is always good to do that, growth in terms of your own capacity to do
Yeah.
ministry, and also in terms of growing your own knowledge and understanding of the Word of God, and also other correlated matters that are connected to our living as human beings. And
Yeah.
so for me, I see this kind of progression to be one that every minister who is in ministry should aim at. Because the more you grow yourself, the better you become in terms of your versatility. And then also, we need to grow ourselves to the level where we are not just local, but we can also engage even at the international, platform. And the only way to do that, again, is to grow yourself and develop your knowledge and skills in the ministry.
Yeah, that is interesting. And do you think, would it be better for someone to pursue ministry-related courses, or they can even do things outside? They can even do a PhD in business, but they're still in ministry. I don't know what you think about that.
I would rather, if you are growing yourself, you grow yourself in your area of interest. But what you could also still do, if you are keen, if you go to some of these universities, they have elective courses that you can take that can grow you also in other areas, so that in as much as you are doing a major in theology or in biblical studies, you could also take a minor in one of the other, things that you would also want to add to yourself, so that you are also a little bit wider than just the spiritual. You are also versatile into other areas of study.
Okay, thank you for that. And I think in our nation, I mean, a country like Kenya, where we have so many churches, and most of the time we have spiritual leaders who, don't, not in a disrespectful way, but in a way, just to say that education has not been given priority. Let me say that. And I think there have been suggestions even in the government that we need to have people who are qualified, even in terms of ministry. I don't know what your thoughts are on this.
You see, again, as I said, we are living in a fast world. We are now becoming postmodern, and postmodernism has also brought quite a bit of challenge, and also kind of like changed the scenario in which we serve in as ministers. And that's why I said, if you do not advance yourself, if you do not grow yourself, at some point you become irrelevant, or at some point you become unproductive, because the world has moved, but you are still operating in the yester world, So part of the growing your knowledge and engaging academically, it's not just to boost your mental ability. No. It is also to grow your capacity to think across the board. And so for me, I find it is narrow and shallow for anybody to disregard or not to see this kind of pursuit as one that is still spiritual. And I don't think, it really moves any spirituality unless one now gets off tangent, as some people have done, when they've gone into a lot of philosophical ways of, trying to address biblical things. But for me, I think ministers, for us to be more effective, we need also to grow ourselves academically.
And I think there's something you mentioned which is interesting, because I've heard some people say, the pursuit of even going to higher levels like PhD, and then you encounter questions like, does God exist? It ends up confusing you, and you feel like, I'd rather not go that far. I don't know what your thoughts are on this.
Again, the other caution I would like to give, now that you've brought it in here, is not every so-called Bible college is good. Like now that I'm here in the US, I've come to see we have people who have gone too much to the left, and they have kind of, if I may put it bluntly, compromised the doctrines of the Bible, and
departed from the faith.
People are bringing in now. Yes, people are bringing in humanistic and other types of philosophies, which definitely counter and very much outside of the canon of the Word of God. And so one has to be very careful which college you go to, because you'll go to some colleges that subscribe to some of these negative humanistic philosophies. Like now the hot issue here now is the LGBTQ, where you find there are some places they have no problem with it. They will accommodate it, and they will still want to project themselves in terms of wanting to support their position using scripture. Very interestingly. So I think the choice of the university or the college that you're going to is very key. And then number two, also building up a critical mind. You have to also build a kind of like an insulation around yourself as an academic person, in that everybody has their right to say what they want to say, but you insulate yourself against any of those philosophical positions or ideologies that are definitely counter the Word of God.
Because you will encounter them anywhere, whether in the university or not.
Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I think that is really important. And if there's someone now listening who's pursuing their PhD or their doctorate, and they are in ministry, I don't know what kind of advice, even as we bring it to a close, what kind of advice you'd give them?
I would suggest, again, as we do these studies, basically, for me, as I said, I was ministry oriented, and that's why I did the Doctor of Ministry, and later on, of course, the Doctor in Theology, of course, with emphasis on biblical studies. The one for doctrine, the Doctor of Ministry was basically on church leadership. And what we are saying here is that these are tools that we need in this 21st century. We need men and women of God who are astute and who are well knowledgeable and polished in the things of God, so that they can articulate the Word of God with accuracy, and also be able to engage at different levels, also in terms of the way life is going now with the modern technology, and also other new approaches in terms of how to do ministry, particularly with the growth of the social media. So I would suggest that it is good that one gets this knowledge, because it exposes you now to the use of modern technology. And also you are able to have a wider and a broader understanding of ministry, and not just a localized kind of approach. We are living now in what they are calling a global village. And so, we need to encompass that kind of scope. The other thing I would also want to say is, like for me now, as I said, I did a coursework that was ministry oriented. My dissertation was also based on a practical approach, to some of the things that we are engaging with in the ministry. And of course, providing interventions on how we can mitigate some of these things and how we can improve doing the work of God. I would rather not go the just purely academic, because what happens is that people write these dissertations and they put them on the shelves because they are just hypothetical and they're abstract. But when you deal with a matter that is within the community, that is within the scope of your ministry, then it becomes a mitigation and an intervention towards adding value to the people and to the church and to the community that you are ministering to.
Interesting. I don't know whether if you can just speak briefly about the exact focus that you did in that dissertation, the practical study that you did.
Yes, the aspect of like for me, I was looking and I've measured, particularly when I was doing now my second doctorate here, I measured particularly in looking at the whole aspect of discipleship. And um, I was trying to address the whole understanding on how mentorship is part of discipleship.
Okay.
Because one of my passions is mentorship. And how we, particularly in the charismatic Pentecostal churches, we need to arise and be a little bit more proactive and structured in terms of how we build what I would call leadership development, and how we also carry out what I would call leadership transitions. Many of our church fathers now who are almost at the level of tipping off, if you talk with many of them, you will not find any of them talking about a Joshua or an Elisha they are working with. Many of them, when they leave the scene, they leave a scene that is confused, and they are gone. And the church, which they have built over the many years, some of it fractures, or some of it even collapses. So what we are looking at is having practical approach in terms of our discipleship and spiritual formation in doing mentorship. And so you need to put the necessary structures in place that can grow young people who are coming into ministry to develop their skills and their calling in ministry. And so that when some of us are done, we have people under our arms that can be able to take over the ministries that are there and continue to complete the task and the vision that God has given to us as church leaders.
Yeah, and that's very interesting and actually very, very important for churches. And I think the bit of even planning succession, what comes after. And if someone is pursuing ministry and they're thinking, okay, not ministry, but their doctorate, and they're in ministry, they're in church, they're serving, they're pastors, they're ministry leaders, and they're thinking, okay, so what next? I mean, am I just pursuing? Maybe I wanted to briefly speak about what other opportunities are out there apart from, yes, I have pursued my PhD, but what next?
There are different approaches. Number one, of course, is for the good of your immediate organization, that is the church organization. They need people who have expanded knowledge and who have established themselves in doctrine and in ministry. But also on the other outer world, we need speakers, we need consultants, we need also people who can pioneer different agencies that relate to ministry and not necessarily directly pastoral, but in other aspects of the more divergent ministry, and so, like, again, we need people who can come and lecture in our theological institutions. We need people who can sit on commissions that are established by government. And again, when you sit on such kind of high level commissions, you are dealing with the doctors, professors, you are dealing with the lawyers. And so even for a church leader who is placed in that kind of designation, they are at the same level. They can engage.
True.
You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So I think when we are looking at growing oneself, there's diversity. The horizon is wide. Apart from just church-based kind of ministry. There's theological, we have people who are able to do research. We have people also who can work with other non-governmental or Christian-based organizations.
Yeah.
We are also talking about availing people who can be appointed or to serve on commissions, government commissions, or other appointments where the Christian voice needs to be heard. But it should be an informed Christian voice, because again, if you are placed in such an area and you are shallow in terms of your knowledge and your understanding of life, then again, your input is limited. So I'm looking at the more wider scope. We need people at every level of leadership. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Bishop Dr. Kimiywe, for that. I don't know if people are looking for you apart from, I know I met you on Facebook, but then sometimes back I used to listen to you on Hope FM radio.
Yes.
So I don't know where do people meet you nowadays, now that you're US?
Well, since I migrated to the US, I'm barely 3 months here, so I'm still trying to get my level, but I'm looking at producing yet another book. There was already one that I wrote on mentorship. Now I want to do something that is again ministry based. So again, for me, is to produce tools that can help grow and equip people in ministry.
That is true. So if people want to find you, maybe just to get some advice on what you're talking about, they can find you maybe on Facebook or where else?
On Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I am on YouTube, all those, you'll find me there. But particularly on Instagram, and then also on LinkedIn. I'm also on Facebook. I keep on posting some of my things there.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bishop. That was very insightful, very helpful. Because again, like we're saying, on this channel, we're just focusing on PhD stories with the sole aim of encouraging, of strengthening. Sometimes this journey can be very lonely, and when you get to hear stories of other people, it is very helpful. I don't know if there's anything else you thought we could still add, but we've come to an end. Anything else you might have remembered?
The only thing that I find that is a bit challenging now, particularly in the Kenyan scenario, is when most of these our theological schools got their accreditation by the what do you call it, the Commission of University Education. We kind of compromised the theological schools. Most of these schools now are offering many other courses and many other disciplines. And like, for example, if you went to a place like Park University, you will find the theological students are just a handful. And yet a place like Park University was originally Holy Theological Training School. If you go to now AIU now has also grown quite some, but the growth is more in the non-theological studies.
Could it be a business also perspective?
Well, what I'm seeing is that if we are not very careful, very soon we will lose that,
the theological focus,
theological factor in our institutions, and they will be swallowed up by these other courses, which I don't think I have any problem with. But since they can be offered in any one of the other many universities that we have here, what I would have decided and designed is that we leave the theological schools to remain theological seminaries, period. And we don't allow them to water down into accommodating many other, faculties, which definitely are demeaning and, if not stifling, the theological training.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your sentiments, Dr. Kimiywe. Thank you so much. If you're watching
You're
and
welcome.
you're new here, I just want to, if you're new to this channel, PhD Stories, make sure you have liked, subscribed, and of course, share these stories because someone somewhere will be encouraged. Thank you, Dr. Kimiywe.
You're welcome. God bless you and all the
God bless
best.
you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.